This is the thing. Who you choose to hang around with, who you choose to have in your posse is exactly who you become. Choose your posse wisely. I'm here to tell you that putting yourself first is not selfish, it's revolutionary. Welcome to the Woman Warrior Podcast, empowering women to light their lives on fire through Ayurveda, yoga, spirituality, and fitness. Jai Bhagwan, Woman Warriors, and welcome to the Woman Warrior Podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Satyavani, and as always, the famous, amazing co-host,
Prajna Madhavi. Hello.
Here she is. The bun is back.
The bun is back.
I like it.
The bun is always on the podcast.
Is it?
Yeah.
I mean, you never
Not
wear your hair
always.
down. You know what?
I never wear my hair down.
You should. I think
You're real lucky if you get to see my hair
I think you should wear the hair down one day just to surprise everybody.
Yeah.
Because it is long.
Yeah.
I don't know whether you or Holly's
got longer hair.
Does she have long
right
hair?
now.
Right
'Cause I
now.
cut mine.
Okay.
But COVID, man, I had long hair.
Was
So
it
I was
like-
like, fine. You're just going to close down on the hairdressers? I'm just not going to cut my hair. And just didn't cut my hair.
Yeah.
And
that didn't
that's-
happen with me.
Yeah. No, I know. Like, fine. I just won't cut my hair at all. And it got pretty long.
Pretty long.
And thick and a
Wow.
little ratty at the ends. But...
Yeah. We actually had our stylist during COVID come to our house.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, she actually came. So
Yeah, man.
So Carissa, we love you, girl.
Hit them
You're
so
fantastic.
hard. Sucked.
Yeah.
That was probably the wrong mentality. Like, fine, I just won't get my hair cut. But
No.
it's like, yeah.
Protest.
Yeah.
Yeah, I have a client right now who, I know we're totally going off on a tangent right now, but I have a client right now who we're in perfect alignment when it's like, she's like, hair and nails, like, got to get the hair and the nails done. I'm like, I get it. And like, I actually need to get my nails done now, but because because of the work we do, it's like you can't have long nails.
No.
And I don't polish them or anything like that. I just go get them. Got to get my claws clipped.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
All right, so let's do our wellness check-in. We actually are here today with a purpose, friends, outside of trying to talk about hair and nails.
We're going to try to be really efficient with our wellness check-in.
Yes.
So, yeah.
So it's not half the podcast. I noticed that last week
Yeah.
when I was reviewing our most recent podcast. I'm like, damn,
Yeah.
girl, shut up. Like it just, yeah. I literally say that to myself when I review some of the podcasts. I'm like, oh God, girl, just
Stop
shut up.
talking.
Just stop talking. My poor mother. Anyway.
Oh, well.
But today, friends, we are going to talk about this concept, your body speaks your mind.
Yes.
And actually, I want to do a little plug here for Deb Shapiro. Now, this book, literally called Your Body Speaks Your Mind. This is an OG book. I got this book. This is published in 2006.
Nice.
So this is almost 20 years old. I think I got that book like 15 years ago. And it's been a major influence on my personal journey and study with Ayurveda and energy work and all of that kind of stuff. So I'm glad we're looping back to it.
Yeah.
So we've got some good stuff for you today, friends. So stay tuned along the ways.
Yeah.
But we're going to do our not so long wellness check-in right now. So girl, what's up?
Not a lot. On the physical side, we're in that in between. It's definitely feels
Interseason.
Like interseason. Just feel a little sluggish and a little wiped out.
Yeah.
Last week was a little rough. Just even going in and lifting was like, oh,
Yeah.
like I just didn't feel like I had a lot of strength and just kind of feel a little inflamed. And, a lot of people are sick and
There are a lot of people sick.
so I'm happy I'm not sick. So yeah. But just,
On our fancy wood table.
yeah, but just feel a little more under the weather.
Sure.
Which then has an effect on the energy. Energy's been a little bit lower. So again, just trying to take care of myself, getting plenty of sleep.
Which is great.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people do the opposite.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
just
My
push
go-to
through.
has been to do the opposite. You got to do work. You got to do things harder. Like, no,
Yeah.
not doing that now.
Yeah. Yeah. And then mentally, emotionally, a little more stable on that end. Like, a little more strong in the mentality, and the emotional is just a little more calm. So not quite so up and down.
What changed that?
I don't know.
So, in other news, the update on the dating scene with Prajna is you get voted off the island.
Yeah. Some people getting voted off. So
they have to.
And we just put yourself first and have to think about what I want in my life and
what you deserve.
Yep. So, and
how did that decision make you feel? Like, did you feel?
It took a while.
It took a minute
for me to feel good about it. Mm-hmm. I didn't roll. My mind was like, no, well, maybe. No, it took a bit, but it finally was like, no, you are worth more than this, and you deserve more. And staying single is not the worst thing that's ever going to happen to you with everything that you've got going on. So,
I envision later this year you're going to have like 5 proposals.
No, I don't think I can handle that.
For all these hot guys on High Rocks. Yeah. For the record, we just pass cat memes and High Rocks.
That's what we do.
Athletes back and forth on Instagram.
That's what we do on Instagram. Mm-hmm.
So
a lot healthier than a lot of the other things you could pass around.
There you go.
Yeah.
Well, you get some really good tips on workouts and stuff, which is great.
Yeah, great tips.
Shut up. Just leave it there, okay?
Yeah, that'll make my abs look like that. Okay.
Okay. I'll just watch it 100 times.
Yeah. Intuition again.
Yep.
Trying to listen to my original intuition. My mind hijacks it and soars and takes it all different directions. But coming back originally to the intuition that I felt from the beginning of like, I don't know if this is really the right thing. And it was right. Wasn't the right thing for me. And it doesn't make anybody bad.
No.
It doesn't make anybody a bad person. That's not the right thing for me.
That's right.
And that's fine. I'm not the right thing for you either. So,
which is great.
It's great. And then
I think if more people, not just women, but I think if more people did that, it'd make things so much easier.
Yeah.
It really would. Just like, this isn't the right thing for me. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Like, stop.
Take your ego out of it.
Right.
Like you
stop.
don't have to be everyone's cup of tea.
No.
It's okay.
No. And stop jamming a square peg in a round hole.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's not gonna, no.
Just so that your ego is satisfied with like,
right.
Does he like me? Does he like me not? Like,
right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And then spiritually, still working on that one.
I get it.
Yeah. At least, I mean, the weather's getting nicer because, nature is kind of my spiritual place.
Yes,
so
it
out in the garden, we'll definitely slugging around compost. Spring break. So spiritual.
I see God in this dirt.
Yes. But you really do.
You do. You do.
I mean, the garden is really my happy place, even though it's a lot of work.
It is. And you got a big yard.
Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
Bigger than I thought.
It really is.
Mm-hmm.
Speaking of which, yesterday, this was so random. Oh, no. Michael and I, at dinner, we were, after dinner, we were watching Young Sheldon. We were Big Bang Theory people. And like, I love all the character development on Young Sheldon. And so they have this whole episode about the neighbor and the chicken coop and the whole thing, right? And Michael's like, I really want a chicken coop with chickens. I was like, well, Prajna's got a chicken coop. He's like, does she have any chickens? I said, no, she doesn't have any chickens. He's like, well, maybe we could get some chickens. And I'm like, are you going to take care of them?
Mm-hmm.
And so it could happen.
Okay.
It could happen.
So I'm like, if I need help taking care of those things, because I've had them before and they're more work than people say they are.
Yeah.
And they're so easy. No, they're not.
No.
They're not.
No,
They're
you have to be
a
mindful.
living thing that need care.
Yes.
And you take care of them.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, sidebar.
That'd be great.
Yeah.
I'd love Michael to come and pull weeds
Except,
for me. He can come on over.
Michael, you need to go to Prajna's and pull weeds. And then maybe you'll get a chicken coop.
Yeah. And make my, yard more zen.
It can be done.
Yeah.
It can be done.
So that's me.
Awesome.
How about you?
On the physical side, I have left bulking season.
Yeah.
Sad face.
Closed door.
I know. And I'm in cutting season. And actually, I'm okay with it. Like, I was
You were ready.
I was ready for the transition. I was like, oh my God. But as you know, got my stats done, and in 3 months put on 6.5 pounds of muscle.
So great.
Which was just like, whoa. Like I was actually like, whoa, okay, girl. Only went up from the last time that I did my stats before bulking. I only went up 2% on the body fat. But a girl put on 11 pounds. Which
6 pounds of muscle though.
exactly. So I'll take it. And actually, both of my trainers were like, damn, that was good.
Yeah.
Like you did all the right things because I listened to them. So it worked out really well. So both Grayson and August, thank you so much for your guidance. So I felt really good about that. And so now in my cut this time is definitely a different approach. I do not want to get depleted. I think last year, I mean, I did a 16-week cut last year, which was long.
Yeah.
And I loved the results, but I definitely had more depletion. And I recognize that now coming out of this bulk. So we're just going to do it a little bit differently this time. And today was one of those days where it was my back is sore. We've been crushing, hybrid camp, like doing that and heavy lifts and all of that. And
Crushing is in going. Well, let's just be clear.
Come on.
That's our crushing.
I was a little bit better than that. I mean, you were crushing. You ran a lot last weekend.
I did run a lot in really
I was just
stupid shoes.
I'm like race walking.
And my knees definitely feel it.
Yeah.
I'm like, what am I doing?
So
God.
there's just been a lot of running. And if I don't have breaks in between running intervals,
Absolutely.
it's just, I take it.
At our age and with our mileage, yeah.
Right. So it's just, I've had a sore back, and then that leads into, hips. And so I went to go see the great Jessie, Jessie Kohea, our massage therapist, who's amazing. If anybody's looking for a massage therapist, let us know in the comments, and we will refer you to Jessie. He's a miracle worker and just amazing at understanding the body. And he's like, you have weak adductors, and that's why like all of that stuff with hips. I mean, because it's the same thing with you.
Notice it today in yoga.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, my adductors are not even firing.
Right. So all of it happens in the hips and the low back for me. So today I just took the day off. Yeah. Like, I'm not going to train today. Like I'm tired and this is sore, and that jumps up to the intuition, which was just like, this is not the right thing for you to do today. Whereas in the past, I would have allowed the ego to hijack it and be like, no, you've got to go no matter what. And it's like, no, actually, I don't. So after I trained my clients today, went home, ate some lunch, took a nap before we came here, which was great.
Did that.
I did.
Yeah.
Really did. It was great. Which, energetically now I feel like, okay, I don't feel as stressed about getting all the things done. So that feels really good.
Yeah.
And mentally, emotionally, I feel like I'm turning a corner in terms of my mentality around training. And a lot of it has also been super helpful with some of the podcasts we've been listening to. So Mind Pump. Shout out to the guys at Mind Pump. You have no idea who we are, but we listen to you every day.
We do.
So thank you. And they're OGs, in that field. And so they really, and they're our age. So they understand.
Talk about a podcast where they started.
Oh, right.
Have you heard their story?
No.
Oh God,
No.
they were. Well, they're the first ones who will say they were terrible at the beginning.
Oh,
they talked about
podcasters.
Yeah, they talked about some of the worst topics, like just shocking, shock value. What can we talk about that will be shocking?
Got it.
Yeah, they've learned a lot. So
you can, and I can even tell from the year that I've been listening to them that it's changed.
Yeah.
I mean, they're definitely gym bros. Like, don't get me wrong.
They are.
But they have been in the industry so long that they have a lot of knowledge. And if they don't have the knowledge, they bring people in who do. Yeah. And they learn from it. So it's been
they're
really
not
helpful.
egoic.
No,
they
not
have
at
no
all.
problem saying we don't know that.
We have no idea.
We'll find out.
Right. Which is great.
Yep.
So I appreciate them. But I've taken a lot from what they have been talking about lately, especially their most recent podcast, which was about transforming your body in 90 days.
Yep.
And they were talking about bulking and cutting and all that kind of stuff. And so some of the things that I've experienced in previous cuts that I don't want to experience this time, I'm taking a page out of their book.
Nice.
So I feel mentally, emotionally less harsh on myself. And I'm like, it's going to be all right.
Yep.
So,
Sometimes
yep.
more is not better.
It's just more.
Just more.
It's just more. Yep.
Yeah.
So, which has given me more time for some yoga nidra. I've done several nidras in the past few days to get back my spiritual connection.
Yeah.
And that was helpful, especially when I was limited with time yesterday and had to go to the gym at 4:30 in the afternoon.
This girl, she's like, never again will I go to the gym at 4:00. And I'm like, I always go to the gym at 4:00. It's great.
Terrible. And actually, shout out to DJ, who is the manager at the gym. He's just like, it's just a battle at this hour.
Oh, there's so many people there.
So many people. And look, I don't begrudge people for, they're
for
trying, they're doing the thing, the whole thing, but and, you have, I had a very detailed, focused workout, and it was like, I've got to do these things. And then I'm going from one station to the next, and I'm just trying to get through, and you're navigating through people. And then
I will say the one ask is when it's that busy, leave your phone in the locker room. Don't sit there scrolling on your phone for 10 minutes in between on the same machine.
Well, my favorite was, speaking to that end, yesterday I needed to use an area, and I started out, and then I moved from one station to the next, and by the time I wrapped back around, this other gal came into the space, which, she's entitled to do that.
Yeah.
It's not like, I have real estate there. But literally would do 3 reps and then spent 15 minutes. I'm like, girlfriend.
Gym etiquette.
Hon, come on, you got to do better. You got to do better. So, yeah. But that helped cultivate my spiritual wisdom by just saying, okay,
Patience.
It's fine. And I'll just call Prajna after this and tell her how much I will never go to the gym at 4:00 anymore.
Let me go to the gym.
Well, it's such a different crowd. That
It's a crowd.
Oh yeah, yeah.
It's just a crowd.
It's true. But
You're used to 6 a.m. where there's no one else
more
there.
4 o'clock, 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And
There's no one there.
no, but there are people there, but it's a different.
Oh yeah.
It's a different mentality, a different crowd. I can even handle going there, 9:30.
Yeah, I went there 9:30.
Yeah, or
today.
11, something like that. When you have sort of that senior crowd, they're retired or whatever. Those folks are great.
Yeah.
But that 4:30, 5 o'clock hell.
College kids, high school kids.
Oh,
Yeah.
it's terrible. I'm like, no. Anyway, so that's
Super
it.
fun. It's my day every day. High school kids.
Not anymore.
Not
Very
for long.
soon.
Not for long.
Not for long.
I'm excited.
All right. So, girl, let's jump in.
Okay.
Let's
do
jump
it.
in. We've got talking about how the body speaks your mind.
Yes.
So, why did you want to do this one? Because you came to me with this.
Yeah, I know.
I'm gonna drink.
So
the
our
water.
first quarter of the year, we talked about how we wanted to focus on the Anamaya Kosha,
Physical body.
so the physical body, and we had talked about this book actually a few times in, I believe, Dharma Circle and just in conversations.
Yep.
And I got the book
Yep.
because you'd brought it up.
At AWP.
Yeah.
I think we spoke about it in AWP
Yeah.
back in the day.
And I started reading it, and I was thinking, okay, we're doing a podcast today, so working on the Anamaya Kosha, what could we talk about? And I'm like, okay, this book would be perfect. And our SB Studios was talking about how to formulate, our podcasts, and I thought, what a great way to formulate our podcast a little bit differently than telling a little bit about our story.
Yes. Well, we hear
through the
about
lens of the book.
We hear about my story all the time. We need to also bring, your story into this.
Sure.
As well. Sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
So let's jump in.
Okay.
All right.
So when I was looking at this book, and trying to kind of lay out what we wanted to talk about today, the first page that jumped out at me, I'm just going to read from page 18.
Yep. The stress factor.
Yeah, she gives this great analogy with the toothpaste tube. So I'm just going to read this to you guys. So imagine you're trying to squeeze some toothpaste out of a tube, but you have forgotten to take the top off or to flip the lid. What happens? The toothpaste has to find some other way out. This usually means it will come out of the bottom of the tube or perhaps force a hole in the side. whatever or wherever is the weakest point. Now imagine that the tube of toothpaste is you. You are under pressure and beginning to experience psychological or emotional stress, but you do not take your lid off, as it were, by recognizing what is happening and taking time to relax or deal with your inner conflicts. So what happens to the mental or emotional pressure building up inside of you? Eventually, it has to find a way out. And if it can't come out through the top by being expressed and resolved, it will come out somewhere else. It will find the weakest point, whether through your digestive system, your nerves, your immune system, or your sleep patterns. Pushed down, it becomes illness, depression, addiction, or anxiety. Projected outward, it becomes hostility, aggression, prejudice, or fear.
God, that's good.
Yeah. So.
She was talking about Ayurveda.
Yes, she was.
Yep.
Not before it became a thing, but before it really kind of became a thing.
Before it became popular.
Yeah. The West, yeah.
Yep.
So I wanted to link that with our own personal stories.
Yes.
And then also have you link it to
some of the Ayurvedic concepts.
Some of the Ayurvedic concepts
Sure.
that we talk about. So with the ailment for me, and we're just going to speak to the ailment first because we're going to get to the symptoms and all of that. Mm-hmm. But for me, it was going to the doctor, my just regular, get your blood work done.
GP thing.
How you doing? Great. Mm-hmm. Okay. Do you need anything? No. Good. But I always got blood work. I kind of got, ever since Joe got sick, and we found out through blood work, I was like, well, I'm going to get blood work every year just to make sure everything's good. So I got my blood work, and in 2018, I suppose. Yeah, 2018. And my TSH was high. And she's like, well, your TSH is high. It's higher than we would like. So let's get you on Synthroid or get you on a synthetic thyroid. And I was like, wait, what?
Rewind. Hold the phone here.
When did all this happen? And that just a light bulb moment in my brain was like, well, how long has it been high? Like, did this just happen this year? And so I looked back at my previous ones, and it had been sort of on the high end for like the last 2 years too. Mm-hmm. And it just wasn't, allopathic medicine. It just wasn't high enough for them to flag it and say, let's get you on a hormone, or thyroid medication. Mm-hmm. And so that actually was the doorway that led to you, because
isn't that amazing?
Yeah, it is amazing.
Critical moment.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, right there. Just me deciding this didn't happen overnight.
Now, from the time that you got the blood work done and it got back, did we know each other from yoga teacher training at that point? Okay.
Because I usually saw her in
September?
June.
Okay.
And that was when it was 4 point something, which is high.
Yes.
And then I actually got it done again in September because she's like, well, let's wait a couple months and we'll get it tested again. Mm-hmm. Well, by that time I was full in school, coaching. So by September it was 7 point something.
Unbelievable.
So
like, are you alive?
So that's when I came to see you. Yep. Because she's like, we'll just wait and see how it is in a couple months.
A couple months ain't going to be better.
No, not with that.
Nope.
And so that's where I was like, okay, something's not working. Right. This isn't working. So that's when I came. And I believe that's when I came in to see you, because I was like, okay, I don't want to go on, synthetic hormone. I don't think I need to.
Nope.
Because again, this did not happen overnight. And it didn't go from 4 to 7, with something externally happening. Like this is an internal thing.
Well, and also to circle back on that, let's just make sure that we tie this back to environmental factors.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, I remember that. Yep. And for the record, when you first came in, like there was no Ojas at all.
So crazy.
It was like,
What did I look like?
oh no, you know what?
Thin and gray and
I have to find that photo. I do, and I'm going to post it all over social media before and after. You were, as we say in the Ayurveda world, you were ashen.
Mm-hmm.
You had like gray, silvery skin. You had dark circles under your eyes.
Yeah.
Hair was breaking off.
Mm-hmm. Very dry.
Very, very dry, very, very depleted. And that's when I was like, so what do you eat? And you're like, trail mix. I'm like, yeah, no.
For lunch.
We're not gonna do
Sometimes for dinner.
sometimes all day.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, no.
Yeah.
Which, this brings us to, because of the Vata constitution that you have, this brings us to this concept that within the doshas, within Vata, Pitta, and Kapha, within each of these constitution types, within each of these very specific modalities that are inside of our bodies, Vata is responsible for this, Pitta is responsible for this, Kapha is responsible for this. There are these things that cause fluctuations within the doshas that, we're constantly monitoring. Mm-hmm. So there's this. The three basic concepts of them are what the natural kind of stages of development. So there's accumulation, there's aggravation, and then there's alleviation. So accumulation in Vata is this idea of dryness that starts to happen. We start to accumulate dryness that is coupled with heat in the body. And then the aggravating part of it is when things kind of reach a height where all of a sudden there is this something external starts to happen. And that is coupled with this concept of being cold, being very cold and dry, et cetera. And then what we're looking for in order to create alleviation, in order for there to be relief, is we want to create warm, moist, or lubricated kind of qualities and conditions. So the hypothyroidism that you were experiencing had been something that had been accumulating for a long period of time and reached a very high aggravation point, which was these very high numbers. And so what we needed to do is figure out, okay, what is the balancing act here that we can cause some alleviation? So the alleviation point in allopathic medicine, and again, this is not a bust on allopathic medicine. It has a purpose, but the point, the immediate alleviation is like, we got to get you on some sort of, allopathic script.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that, and I don't want to go down the rabbit hole of hypothyroidism, from an Ayurvedic perspective, because that's not what the purpose of this podcast is. But in brief, a lot of the medications that are given for people with a constitution type of, Vata with hypothyroidism, et cetera, actually wind up aggravating it even more. Because for all intents and purposes, not everything, but for the majority, medications are very drying in general. So that's just causing more aggravation to an already dry existence. Yeah. So what's interesting about this whole idea of accumulation, aggravation, alleviation is that there's seasonality associated with it. So as an example, the reason why your numbers were lower in the summer is because that's an alleviation season for you. Yeah. So each of the doshas have seasons that aggravate, that accumulate, that aggravate, and alleviate. So if summer is the alleviation season for Vata because it's warm, and you need the warmth that's associated with that, then the accumulation season for you is the late winter and spring. So
ding, 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 like right now.
Okay. But the aggravation time for you is the fall. Yeah. So when you went back to school and your numbers went up, seasonally, you were more aggravated. So the accumulation, this starts to, become an issue in that late winter and spring. And then you get some alleviation in the summertime, but then when it wraps back around in the fall, that's when you are super aggravated.
And add on top of that, that's when I was my busiest.
Exactly.
And I also think about the fact that, again, allopathic medicine has its place, but in this case, it's a Band-Aid, which, I mean, you're going to take something that, as you say, can also be sort of aggravating. And in your mind, it's allowing you to think that you can still do what you're doing.
Right.
And you're going to be fine.
Right.
I was like, that, no.
No. And so seasonality, and this is like what I said in the last podcast, that people discount weather and seasons on their physical condition. It's like, oh, no, I should be fine all year round. That is not true. So knowing that there is a season that things are alleviated and smooth, knowing that there's a season that you're going to start accumulating some agitation, so to speak, and knowing that there is a season that you're going to be aggravated. Like for pittas.
And actually for women, it's even every month.
Yeah, right. There's microclimates. You're absolutely correct. Like literally, I remember saying this a long time ago before I even like understood anything about Ayurveda. I was like, there's really only like maybe a week and a half in a given month that I feel great. The other thing is you're either preparing for your menstrual cycle or you haven't. You know what I'm saying? Like there's this like 10-day period in a month
Glorious
where you're just like,
10
this
days.
is great. And that's when you're just like, okay, that's when I'm going to plan my vacation. That's like everything
Going on
good.
my dates.
Exactly. Like everything happens
Line
in
'em
that
up.
month. Everything. You got 10 days. That's it. So, and it's actually kind of true.
Yeah.
For pittas, the aggravation season is summer.
Yeah.
Because we are fire. And so when you add more heat to it, it's like, oh, I get alleviated in the fall, and I'm just like, this is great, whereas like you and Michael, you're like, oh my God, I can't take it. And things start to accumulate in the spring, the late winter, spring kind of situation. So your aggravation state is the fall, you're alleviated in the spring, summer, and winter, you start to accumulate. With kappas, they are aggravated in the late winter and the spring. So because of that moisture. Yep, that moisture starts to happen, and then when the season wraps around, when we get into the summertime, there's a little bit of alleviation, but they have the accumulation that happens in the wintertime. Some of that. So it just kind of wraps itself around. So, and you're right, like this is the same thing with menstrual cycle, et cetera. So it's really that springtime for kappas, like as we're getting ready in there. That's why a lot of people are getting sick right now because we're in that interseason, that you mentioned in our check-in. That interseason it's the 4 weeks where it's 2 weeks before the end of a season, but you're not quite in the next season. So there's that 4-week window and we're in it right now. And what's happening? Everybody is getting these kappa-like conditions of imbalance, the flus and the colds and all of this. I mean, it's also, we've had a lot of, January, February, and March coming off holidays and people are incubating all of that sugar that they had and all of that. And people like, they think like, oh, well, Christmas and New Year's was, 3 months ago. Yeah, but like there is a full 90-day digestive process that happens. So, yeah.
Wow. So you speak a little bit to what you had happen?
Oh, absolutely.
Your ailment?
In early 2019, I came down with double pneumonia. And I do, selfishly, I will say that I do write about this in my book. And it had been accumulating, I would say, for years.
Yeah.
Just a lot of stress, a lot of not really taking care of myself. And it really busted wide open in December or so of 2019.
Right after you got back from India?
before
Right
I
before.
went to India.
That's
right
right.
before I went to India. And a lot of people were like, well, you probably had COVID. And it was not. It was not COVID. COVID didn't come out until COVID didn't come out. It was
COVID wasn't a thing until
it wasn't a thing
March
until March
2019.
Exactly. 2020.
2020. That's
2020.
right.
So so I was either an early adopter, which I don't think was the case, because it had been something that had been years in the making. And I was sleeping terribly. My diet was okay. Wasn't great. I would say that I went more through a cleanse after that process. But, I remember it like it was yesterday. It was just like I got this cough that just would not go away.
We're going to get to symptoms.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. So I just won't.
Yeah.
But
We're gonna get to that.
double pneumonia and wound me up in Palomar Medical Center in California. It
was serious.
Oh, it was bad. It was really bad. Like cardiac arrest bad. Like I'm going into cardiac arrest. And I had been carrying it around with me for like 16 days. And I got off the plane from Boise to San Diego to visit my parents because I wanted to see them before we were going on this trip to India, where we were taking a group of people. And my mom met me in the airport lobby, and she's like, "Oh my God." She's like, "We're taking you right to urgent care." I'm like, "No, I'm fine." And as a classic Pitta, so stubborn. I'm just like, "I'm fine." There's a Pitta Kappa crossover with me when it comes to personality. And I'm like, "I'm fine." Everything's fine. I don't need a lung. I got another lung. It's fine. My mom's like, "How long has this been going on?" And I'm like, "Oh, I don't know." So they take me to urgent care. The PA was like, "We're going to do a lung saturation rate." And my lung saturation rate was 70. It's supposed to be 95. It's terrible. And so I'm like, I'm weak. I'm half conscious. I'm like, "I'm fine." Just give me the antibiotics, and I'm just going to go home and sleep. And he's like, "The only way you're leaving here is in an ambulance to the hospital." And so I was like, I can't. And he's like, no, you can't not. Put me in an ambulance. On the way to Palomar, my mom is trailing behind in the car behind the ambulance. And all of a sudden I start going into cardiac arrest. And it was just like, oh boy. And I'm like, "This is it. I'm going up. This is yes. That wasn't in the cards. But long story short, went into the hospital, was in for 4 days. It pumped me with all of this, stuff that forces you to cough to get the stuff out of your lungs.
Yeah.
And they had to tape my ribs.
Yeah.
Because they're like, you could crack a rib.
Yeah.
And it was pretty vicious. But I will say this, at emergency medicine, it worked, and
they were great there.
Oh my God, they were.
You were talking about how wonderful they were.
The hospital was great. It was I was like, "This is great." It was the first time I'd been off my feet. It was the first time I'd stayed off my feet in months. Yeah. And I'm like, it was a 5-star hotel. They had a little a pull-out couch for my mom, and we watched Harry Potter. I ate French fries. I was like, this is great. So, but it was pretty vicious, and it was classic accumulation, aggravation, and then finally alleviation.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
So that leads us to symptoms.
Symptoms.
So I'm going to read from the book once again.
Yes.
This was
what page
from
are we on?
Chapter 3, page 43.
Page 43.
The language of the body. And this is pretty short, but I just wanted to read this part. The body speaks to us through symptoms. Symptoms tell us something is going on, whether through the nature of the symptom, the effect it has, or the changes it demands. The word symptom derives from the Greek syn, meaning together, and piptin, meaning to fall. So to fall together. In other words, disturbances, difficulties, or conflicting issues may have been present for days, or as you said, months, or even years.
Those years.
Before finally falling together and creating a symptom.
I love how she puts that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And I was the classic example of that. It had been years. And what the precursor to all of that was, that led up to that moment was, we had moved from Oregon to Boise in 2016, so 3 years prior to that. And we had owned 2 hot yoga studios that had wellness clinics attached to it in Oregon, and sold them and to 2 separate individuals. And the sales of those, it just...
Pretty rough.
It was rough. It just didn't go well.
Yeah.
One of them we actually just got completely screwed out of because the person just didn't hold up their end of the bargain, and then pretended to file for bankruptcy and, all of this stuff. And so like we got screwed out of a lot of money, and all right, it is what, I can look back on that now and be like, whatever. But at the time it was very stressful.
But your body held on to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. It was very stressful. And part of the reason why we had moved from Oregon to Boise was because my father-in-law, who was alive then, had a quadruple bypass. And so there was some family stress that was going along with that. And so Michael and I, we made the decision to move to Boise because it was like, if you want to spend time with your dad, because we didn't know, how much longer. The good news is that he lived for, another 7 years.
Yeah.
He just passed a little over a year and a half ago, but there was just a lot.
Yeah.
And you don't realize, that like, especially with like my pizza personality, I'm just very much like, all right, okay, this is what it is. Boom, you power through. Like you do the thing, you do the thing, you do the thing. And years and years and years of all of that. And it's unprocessed emotions in a lot of ways. And not because I wasn't open to processing them. It was just, I don't have time to do this. And you know how we pizzas are. We're like, it's all about the efficiency. I was just like, I don't have time to process my emotions about this right now. And it wound up with
double pneumonia.
In an ambulance.
Accumulation.
Right. In an ambulance.
It accumulated into something.
Palomar Medical Center.
Yeah.
Yep. Which was my alleviation point. So, and it was similar for you, right?
Yeah.
The hypothyroidism.
Yep. The hypothyroidism, it was years in the making. At least probably 3, maybe 4.
Because Joe had passed
Joe passed in 2016.
Right. So it was 2 years prior to that.
But
we had a wicked 16, both you and I.
Yeah.
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 Oh.
Must have been something going on there. But I would also say that a year and a half to 2 years even prior to that was probably when a lot of it started. Just because I just found myself, like, symptoms for me was I couldn't seem to sit down. I couldn't seem to settle down. Like I had to always be doing something.
And you were.
Yes.
I think it's important also for you to share what you were doing when Joe was sick.
Yeah, I was doing a lot. We had our own little urban farm.
You did.
We had chickens and rabbits and a dog and a garden, and he was juicing 14 times a day, and I had to
make them
when he was sick. I would stay home from work and make them. I was, trying to keep up with schoolwork. I was going to school when I could.
You were also teaching a full load.
Teaching full time.
Because he was doing the Gerson
Gerson therapy.
Gerson therapy,
yep.
right?
Yeah.
Can you share a little bit about that?
Yeah, Gerson therapy is it's from I'm gonna forget her first name now, but her father is the one who came up with it, and then she continued it. And they have places in like Tijuana, Mexico, where I was really hoping that we would just go there, and so he didn't have to do any of this on his own, but he wanted to do it on his own, not spend the money. It's like, ooh, okay. Anyway, it is purely basically trying to get rid of the cancer by completely alleviating any toxic load. Right. So you're doing
alkalining the body.
Yep, alkalining the body. So you're getting 14 juices in a day. You are eating minimally. The foods we would eat would be greens, a potato, no salt, no pepper, no seasoning, very bland. And I was trying to support him in that. So I was...
It's actually a great... like a great theory and program and all that kind of stuff.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it does work.
I think had he not done chemo and the statins originally, we might have had a better shot.
Yeah. There's somebody else locally who I know did it, who used to go to Krav.
Yeah.
A parent of a student. So, and it was successful.
Yeah. And that's why I was hoping if we just would have gone to Mexico, that way he could have just rested and not have to get up, 13 times a day you got to wash the carrots. You got to wash all the lettuce. He was doing coffee enemas. He had to get the coffee. So it was actually my start of getting up earlier and earlier and earlier every single day.
Right.
I was usually a 6:30, 7 a.m. wake up, and now I'm like 5 a.m. and now I'm 4 a.m. But it was, you had to do all these things.
Isn't that amazing to see though, that which was tragic. That was very, very difficult. And I don't think I've told you enough how much I admire you for having to go through that and do that. And how that also led to where you are in this moment right now.
Absolutely.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
And so I want to take a moment with that for a second, because a lot of times we don't see that these very, very difficult challenges are going to show up in a different way later on in our lives, in ways that we could never imagine.
Yeah.
Which is pretty freaking amazing. So you are leading by example now because of that experience.
And I had people at work you're such a rock. And I'm like, okay.
Yeah, I'm trying to keep it together.
I'm just doing what I can every single day. And I think with that, you be the rock and you do all of this stuff. I was noticing I would get very easily irritated.
Cracks
I think
come.
anybody would.
You think?
But I think some of that was the shift in the immune system and the hormones and the taxing of the thyroid and the adrenals and
the hypothyroidism was very, very connected to adrenal fatigue. Of course.
Yeah. And I just found myself getting so tired in the afternoon, I had to take a nap almost every day.
Really?
Yeah. And not because I'm now it might be because I'm physically I
tired,
lifted
right.
and I did, but that was emotionally exhausted. I was just emotionally wiped out.
Yep.
And so, even after he passed, it was kind of like that. 3:00, I gotta lay down and take a nap.
Right. And you get so in that space and that mode.
I couldn't relax.
Right.
I couldn't relax. Right. And then I would just
on
crash.
Edge. Right.
Mm-hmm.
And
on
then
edge
you've
all
got,
the time.
and then you have the trauma of that experience, and also the, all of the emotion and the grief.
Yep.
That is just stacking on top, and and it shows up.
Yeah. And I had a couple of panic attacks too. I do remember that.
Oh my God, how could you not have?
Yeah. I was like, what is going on? Why am I?
Well, it's this toothpaste analogy.
My heart is racing.
Right. It's the toothpaste.
Is this a panic attack?
Is this what this is supposed to feel like? Totally. It's the toothpaste analogy.
Yeah.
It's gonna come out someplace. And what does she say? It's gonna come out in your nerves. It's gonna come out in your digestive system. And that's the truth. It was coming out. Mine was coming out literally through my lungs.
Yeah.
Which, for the record, when you read this book also, and we talk about this in Ayurveda, is with the lungs, these are your emotions. This is, all of that. And so your nerves, those are your emotions. It's linked to the central nervous system. So,
yep.
Well, it's a lot.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're a rock star, girl.
It was. Well, you too. We both had a lot going on.
At the same time.
Yeah, it's crazy.
In different ways, but
And then it led us to each other. So.
I know. It's kind of crazy.
Well,
there's a story here, friends.
Yep, there is. So, who creates your reality?
Oh, I like this. Page 27.
So this is page 27. So this italicized part here.
Yes.
While we can control how we respond to what happens to us, we can't control everything that happens to us. We are all too interconnected, both with each other and our environment. Life is too wonderfully complex for a statement like, you create your own reality, to be simply true. A belief that I control or create my own reality actually attempts to rip out of me the rich, complex, mysterious, and supportive context of my life, to deny the web of relationships that nurtures me and each of us daily. You are in charge of your own attitudes and feelings, of the way you treat yourself and your world, but you cannot determine the outcome of every circumstance. Just as you do not make the sun rise or set, keep the earth in orbit, or make the rain fall. You do not create your own reality so much as you are responsible to your reality. You cannot direct the wind, but you can adjust your sails. You're responsible for developing a peace of mind, but you may still need to have chemotherapy. The resolution and healing of your inner being is within your control, and this may also bring a cure to the physical body. But if it does not, it is vital to remember that you are not guilty and you are not a failure.
That's a truth bomb right there.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it is.
What this actually reminds me of when you started the piece, when we were rereading this, and you talked about, you create your own reality. For that statement to be simply true, it would negate our interconnectedness.
Mm-hmm.
And this reminds me of what Guru Dev, my guru and yours by default, would always say, and what we say in the Kripalu tradition, which is, it is what it is as it is.
Yeah.
And accepting what is as it is. What she's saying here is that, everything is interconnected. So yes, you have to take responsibility for yourself. But I think part of that responsibility is accepting what is as it is and not trying to make it something that it's not. And so in here, by saying that I'm arrogant enough to think that I create my own reality and that nothing outside influences it. When you don't do that, when you realize that there's an interconnectedness, you are accepting what is as it is.
Yeah.
And, you're not always going to like that, And so I think part of dis-ease and the pathogenesis of disease is, and we know that disease starts in the mind. That's a basic Ayurvedic principle. Part of the pathogenesis of disease is not accepting what is as it is and being so arrogant as to think, and I've been arrogant about it. I was arrogant about it. That led me to double pneumonia. Mm-hmm. That oh, no, I can control my circumstances. And if I control my circumstances and believe that I'm the only person who controls my reality, that nothing, that I'm protected, that I've got this force field around me. And we need to acknowledge that there are things that we control and things that we can't.
Yeah.
And accepting what is as it is. I'm having a lot of conversation with a lot of the clients that we have right now, just in light of everything that's going on in our government and the current president and all that. And regardless of what people think or believe, et cetera. But it's so interesting to see the different reactions to that, and as a result, the pathogenesis of disease that's developing. Either you have folks who are just sticking their head in the sand, I'm ignoring this, and if I do that, then it'll go away. Or you have people who are well, we have to do this and this and this and this and this. And I'm not saying not take action or anything along those lines, but it's almost like there's two opposite extremes where it's okay, why don't we just accept what is as it is? There's still people out there who are we can get him impeached, or we can, whatever, And it's just accept the fact that this is where we are right now. Okay. And so what is it that you have control over in this circumstance that will help you stay balanced while simultaneously accepting where it is that we are?
Yeah.
And that applies to all of this.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Another thing we talk a lot about is, and I think this goes right along with what you're saying, is being the witness.
Yes.
And
great one.
Just witness what is happening, avoid attachment to it. Mm-hmm. And I think you've had this experience. It's given people this view of you that is maybe cold.
Oh, yeah.
Or insensitive.
Right.
But it's no, I'm just witnessing what's going on, and I'm not attaching to it in any sense because it doesn't do me a lot of good.
It doesn't.
To attach to it. It's going to create dis-ease
Absolutely.
in my body.
Absolutely. And dis-ease mentally, emotionally, and also in your relationships. And I will say, and I appreciate you bringing that up, because I especially experienced that with the death of my father. I approached that situation in a very different way than, family members or friends or things like that. And, I got a lot of feedback about about like,
Is this thing on?
are you like you're cold, and I have to say, I did a deep dive into that. I was just like, is there something wrong with me? That I don't, and again, it's not that like I don't have grief and that I don't miss my father and that I don't cry, when I think of him in certain, certain times that come up. But I also know that these practices, these Ayurvedic practices, these spiritual practices, etc., have been things that I have been engaging in and working on and with for decades that allowed me to be able to get through and continue to get through my father's death. And just because I'm not emoting all the time or super angry or super sad doesn't mean that I don't feel anything. It's like, it's just managed in a different way. And I don't feel like I'm denying myself how I feel or denying anybody else how it is that they feel. It's just a different approach. And it goes back to, I remember a while back, Michael and I, this has got to be decades ago. We listened to this audio recording where Reginald Ray, who is a very famous Buddhist scholar, was interviewed on like some public radio, blah, blah, blah. And he was talking about his experience with his guru. And he was in a meeting with his guru, and person walked in and told his guru that he had just gotten a phone call that his father had passed. And his guru just, turned to the person who gave him the information and said, okay, thank you. And then continued on the conversation with Reginald. And Reginald was like, dude, like, because he was still like a young scholar studying. And he was like, aren't you upset about it? And he's like, there's no problem here. Because his guru had been doing practices and incorporating this whole idea of the reality of death and disease. And he's like, there really is no problem here. Like, now he's passed, and that's okay. That's part of the natural cycle. And I think that was part of, the process. And I don't know if that had anything to do with what it is that you were getting to. I'm sorry, but like,
how
it just navigated that way.
So the double pneumonia.
Yeah.
How did your life change after that? What did you change? I know you changed some things.
I changed a lot. It changed a lot. That was a very, everybody has these critical moments in their lives where where their body actually speaks their mind. And I'll be straight up, like at that point in time, so this was 7 years ago, so still in my early 40s, and 2.5 decades deep in Vedic philosophy and studying and, all of the things. And I remember coming out of that experience, and I remember this like it was yesterday, and getting on the plane to come back to Boise and sitting down in my seat and literally saying to myself out loud, I will never allow this to happen again. And not in this controlling kind of way, but like, girl, you got to get your shit together. And I remember thinking, I'm a fraud. Like, here I am.
It's really where Lead by Example was born.
Boom.
Right there.
Boom. And literally, I have a chapter in my book called Fraud, where like I talk about this. I'm just like, oh my God, you are so full of shit. You have been teaching and talking about Ayurvedic lifestyle and, all of these things, whether it's the pathogenesis of disease or accumulation, aggravation, and alleviation, and living, the dinacharya and all of this kind of stuff. And you are a mess.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
Mm-hmm.
What are you doing? And I had no muscle tone. I've been doing a lot of yoga, but like I was technically from a body fat standpoint, obese.
Yeah.
And was inflamed beyond belief, miserable, aggravated, agitated, angry, like all of these. And it was like, oh my God, girl, you got to rein this in.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember like, this will never happen again, meaning get your shit together.
Yeah.
And from that moment on, it was just one thing after another. It was like one step closer, one step closer, one step closer, which is where we are now.
Mm-hmm.
So like, folks out there, like, I so appreciate everybody listening, to our podcast and listening to the information that we share. But like, part of the reason why we share this and do this and lead by example is because if you're in that space where you're like, oh my God, I'm trying to make some things happen and I'm going through this self-examination process, and you're going to go through the fraud stage.
Yeah.
Where you're just like, oh my God, I'm full of shit. And actually it was such a liberating moment.
Mm-hmm.
It was such a liberating moment. And like, my body was literally speaking the lack of example that I was displaying. Okay. Like you really want to be an expert in this field. You literally want to lead by example. Get your shit together. Otherwise, we're literally going to kill you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's really what happened. And so it was like, the universe, Shiva, whoever's up there helping me out, thank you, was literally like, I'm going to spare you death, but this is a critical turning point for you. Yeah. And that's environmentally, how things changed.
Nice.
So, what about you?
For me, it was not quite the same path, but it was definitely meeting with you and learning about what I needed to give up in order to have the life that I wanted. You originally said, you need to quit your coaching job. I was like, fuck. Mm-hmm. That's what I enjoy doing. I want to quit the other one. The other one causes me way more stress. To a point. Like,
and here we are.
No, and that's very true. Like, it really started all of that happening to where I quit the coaching job and I was like, okay, so right now my life as it is, I don't really enjoy it that much. Like, I don't really enjoy what I'm doing. I don't enjoy necessarily who I'm with. I don't necessarily enjoy the things that I do on a daily basis. Like, how do I need to fix this? And slowly but surely, and I had moments too where I felt like a fraud, where I was like, yeah, I tout being this yoga teacher and doing all this organic gardening, but I don't really have a garden. And I was like, I need my own space where I can do what I want and have the garden that I want and live the independence that I want. And so that all just started to happen with very courageous steps and probably also with a very healthier body. Completely. So I could have those clear thoughts. And yeah, it also just led me to where we are today.
Absolutely. I mean, you have to think about the things it is that has transpired for you. So for the record, when you come into the circle, you will quit your job, you will get a divorce, you'll leave your boyfriend, but it's
I am an example.
It's just funny
of what can happen.
But you left a relationship that wasn't serving either of you.
Yeah. No, again, no issues with this individual whatsoever.
Not at all. And it doesn't make you a bad person, but I think we get into society with this whole, somebody's got to be there to blame. Like, there's got to be a bad person.
Oh, I know who that is
right.
in other people's eyes, but.
Right.
Yeah.
But, there's got to be somebody to blame. And, there's nobody to blame. It's just, I tell people, why did you get divorced the first time? And for the record, there's only been one divorce. So, but it wasn't a match.
Yeah.
And that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So it wasn't serving either of you. So that transpired. Then you were like, I'm going to buy a house. And like, and then you moved into the hood. Yay. Which was so great. And then, you know, you kept going through all of, you know, like AWP and Acharya initiation, and then like doing the study. And then what was interesting is that the whole volleyball coaching thing wrapped itself back around.
Yes, it did.
You got to tell about that.
Well, yeah. So I quit my coaching job right before COVID, and knew that I always wanted to come back. And then last spring, a beach volleyball job opened up, and I was like, huh.
I think beach volleyball in Idaho is just funny.
I know, it is. So I applied, and they were willing to have me. It just wasn't in the cards. But I said, you know, in the future, I really want to come back. And, you know, I'm now in a better space than ever than to possibly do that. Because I've just always had this nagging 9-to-5 job that, you know, you have to be there for these certain amount of hours.
Absolutely.
Otherwise you're out of contract, and I'm not going to be in that space anymore. And, you know, I know it's going to be hard in different ways, but man, that's, taking those steps. It's, this is where I've always wanted to be. Right. So,
and those are huge steps. I mean, you think about, what do they say? The top 3 biggest like things in life are getting married, buying a home, having a child.
That's not going to happen.
No. No, definitely not over here.
That one's no.
But and or you know,
changing
a job. You know, those things, and like you've kind of hit the trifecta.
3 for 4.
3 for 4 out of that. You know.
Yeah.
So, but and bonsai's your child. So those are huge.
Yep.
It's important.
Yes.
So, very quickly.
Yeah.
The pathogenesis of disease.
Okay.
So, and this is just for, you know, listeners. You know, this is from an Ayurvedic perspective. We have these stages of disease, and I want to read a couple of pieces from one of my medical books. That talks about, you know, the process of disease in the physical body begins in the digestive system. So that is something that I want us to constantly reiterate, even though we're talking about the physical body, the whole idea of the digestive system is...
You must say listening to your body?
Right.
Check your digestion.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
like on the physical level, the digestive system is the structure, you know, by which that happens. So like when we talk about each of the doshas, when things get aggravated with vata, that's something that happens in the large intestine. So that's where the aggravation space is. With pitta, it's the small intestine, and with kapha, it's the stomach. So so there's actually like physical location, but as we continue like our podcast, and we're going to be switching to the energetic body, you know, in the coming podcasts, the whole idea of the digestive system is multi-layered. So it's not just like what physically exists in the structure, but like how do we digest our thoughts, our memories, our emotions, our energy, you know, all of that kind of stuff. So the stages, the 6 stages of disease are accumulation, aggravation, and then what we call overflow. Relocation, manifestation, and diversification. So first there's this accumulation of issue. Then it becomes aggravated. And when it becomes aggravated, it then leaves the digestive system and goes into what we call overflow, which means it enters the circulatory system. And when it enters the circulatory system, it just, boom, takes it out. Because, you know, if you think about the circulatory system, think of it as like, a log flume, you know, the blood is just boom, just the circulation is just taking it into all aspects of the body. And then what happens after overflow is relocation, which means that the circulatory system has taken it out of the digestive system and has put it someplace else. And this is where Deb Shapiro, you know, comes in with Your Body Speaks Your Mind, because it will show up in another area of your body that is actually really not the origin. So like, oh, my shoulder hurts, my back hurts, my hip hurts. That is because the state of dis-ease has been relocated, has overflowed out of the digestive system via the circulatory system and has been taken someplace else. Then it moves into manifestation. So now it's relocated in that new place and it manifests as something else. So again, it's that neck pain, shoulder pain.
Frozen shoulder.
Exactly. You know, I have, a pain in the back of my heart, whatever the case may be. And then if it's still not treated in that manifested state, it then turns into diversification, which means that it becomes very difficult to treat. Yeah. And that's, and like if you take something like the stages of cancer, your cancer cells exist inside of your stomach,
all the time.
In the digestive system. So if they get flicked on and they're aggravated, they overflow, they relocate into, an organ or something along those lines. It manifests in that organ. And if it's not treated, then the diversification process happens and it can wind up spreading. So like that whole idea of metastasizing, can happen. So that's just one example.
Joe was actually a great example of that when I think about how it manifested for him.
Yep.
It started in, neuroendocrine carcinoma started in the digestive system and the small bowel.
Absolutely.
Hormones were off and then manifested into the liver.
Yep.
And by that point, it was too far gone.
Right. And then at that point,
very hard to treat.
Right. It's diversified. And So.
Yep.
I do want to, however, let's pick. What I love about this book is that she does what different things can actually mean, different states of dis-ease. So do you want to pick one? We have, let's see, the respiratory system, the digestive system, the urinary system, reproduction, the skin, the eyes, and all kinds of, various mental disorders, and what the body reveals. Or even, we can even look at moving parts. Let's look at page 137 here, which talks about bones, joints, and muscles, because I think we're both experiencing bone, joints, and muscle issues.
Yeah, I definitely read this part.
So
about the joints.
Yes, let's pick one on this. Let's look at the joints. Okay, so we've been experiencing stiff joints lately. So what she says here in this book about the joints is that the body-mind language is very clear here. Joints enable you to freely express yourself. Their job is to join up your thoughts and feelings with your actions. Through the joints, you can run and jump, hug and caress, punch and push away, or paint and play the piano. You can move easily or awkwardly with grace or discomfort. Joint issues are, therefore, connected to the expression of your feelings through your movements, and any conflict you may be experiencing with those feelings will be apparent. Try walking with stiff knees
all the day
or rigid
24/7.
ankles. Talking or hugging with unbendable elbows, and you will soon see how the joints speak your mind. Stiff joints reflect an inner stiffness, a resistance to sharing, a locking away of your real feelings. Where have your thoughts become rigid or your feelings so unacceptable that you cannot share them? As the whole purpose of joints is to move, so stiff or unbending joints have lost their purpose and meaning. So I think that's just interesting what that, look at your eyebrows. You're like, like what that actually, what that actually expresses.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend this book on anybody's shelf. It just gives a lot of really good information.
That actually leads me right into try this, not that.
Go ahead. I could try this, not that.
I could use these body-mind dialogue, the joints. Like, try asking yourself these questions. If you have joint problems, do you think your feelings are inappropriate to share? Do you feel misunderstood? What has become stiff and inflexible within you? Where have you lost your purpose, your direction, or your ability to move with the flow? Who or what is making you so angry, irritated, or critical? Can you be more accepting, more fluid, or expressive? So, like, try listening to your body and try reading this book. And
that's a great try this, not that.
Paying attention to, it really makes you start listening to your body in a different way.
Well, and instead of narcotics or painkillers, ask those questions.
Because that's healing yourself.
Yep. I do want to add the one on back pain because that's the one that I deal with a lot. It says, as the back is out of reach and out of sight, so this is the perfect place for hidden or repressed emotions or issues that you don't want to deal with. Because if you can't see them, how can anyone else? Most especially, there may be layers of unconscious rage being held in the muscles of your back. Now, I wouldn't know anything about that.
Nope.
And that's, that's part of the story. Like dealing with anger has always been a thing that I've had to deal with.
Yeah.
So here's some questions. So instead of taking the painkiller, is there something you have pushed away that you need to acknowledge and accept? Are you pushing back your feelings, particularly rage, grief, or guilt? And that poses the question about grief with my dad. I think it's a great question. You talk about having a, quote, bad back as if it has done something wrong, but is it the back that is bad or the stuff you have dumped there? All right. I got to close this book. What would it have to do to be a good back? Is something holding you back from moving forward?
Yeah, I'll get out of school eventually. I know. Causing her back pain.
You're not causing me any back pain. No, but actually that question, I'm going to reflect on that as it relates to grief. So, sure. I mean, I've had a bad back, quote, bad back for many, many years.
Grief hides in many different
places.
Facets and many different ways. Yeah, and pops up when you least expect it.
Agreed. So this brings us to the truth bomb and the conclusion of the podcast today, my friends.
Yes.
Truth bomb. The difference between ice and water is 1 degree. What if you were 1 step away from the life you want? Don't give up on it. I like that one.
It just fit with today because, think about 1 degree in your body. Your body, that 1 degree could cause the joint inflammation, the back pain. And are you paying attention enough to notice when it's turning to ice?
Health or dis-ease. I love it.
Yeah.
This was great.
Yeah.
I'm going to reread this cover to cover now. It's been a while.
Yeah.
But it's one I always reference, but I haven't reread it in a very long time.
I bet it's one we can bring into energy as well.
100%. And actually it'll be great because if we have certain guests on, I think they'll eat it up. So
yeah.
Anything else, my friend?
Nope, that was it.
All right. Thank you so much, Women Warriors. I hope you found this resourceful and super informative. I know I love talking about this topic. Your body speaks your mind. And our future podcast, we're now going to move to the energetic body. So stay tuned. And if you would like to follow us, make sure that you find us on Instagram. We now are at the Woman Warrior Academy. So Woman Warrior Academy, it's the our new follow on Instagram. So it used to be under my name, but now it's Woman Warrior Academy. Do that. And then please do subscribe to our YouTube channel so that you can continue to see our clips and also these podcasts. So the Woman Warrior Academy is our it's our old new.
Do you want to plug our app at all?
Yes.
Okay.
So, and we'll give more detail about it in the future, but we now have a branded personal training app. So for those of you that are not having the ability to have a personal trainer come to the home, or you don't live in our area, we do have a branded app with a company called Trainerize. So stay tuned for that. And of course, join the Woman Warrior online circle.
Yep.
We have a new webpage that's dedicated to it that has all of the tiers that are associated with membership. We have a free version, we have a low-cost version, and then it kind of tiers up. So there's tiers 1 through 4. And if you go to thewomanwarrioracademy.com, you will be able to check the membership options that are there. We'd love to have you join into the circle. We have great information and a great community that's operating out of there. So anything else?
I think that was it.
Okay. So stay tuned for more information on our branded personal training app. We're actually pretty excited about it. So, all right, my friends, thank you so much for joining us, and Jai Bhagwan. And as always, may your soul be victorious.
Is life hard? Yeah, it's really fucking hard. And you can also have the life it is that you want. You just got to work for it.